Hello ladies and gentlemen, my name's Wyatt J. Coonan, and this is my Let's Play of Twisted Metal. Now, a lot of people have asked me, okay, nobody has asked me because I don't actually have a YouTube channel at the time I'm making this video, but if I did have a lot of followers, they would probably ask me why I want to make a Let's Play video of a game that is 7 years old, on a system that is no longer the youngest system in its line. And the answer is because, well, think of all the games that you remember fondly. Not necessarily the ones that you played the most, or you had the most fun with. I mean, the ones that stuck with you the most. For me, that list is Bastion, Power Slide, Dark Souls, and Smash Bros. Now, I've only had this game for a short while, but I can already tell it's going to be on that list too. And I think what all those games on that list have in common is personality. They have a strong mood, a very clear attitude. It's not just bland. It's not just solid gameplay, like Connect 4, Tic-Tac-Toe. They have something artistic to them. And in some ways, I don't actually like the personality this game has. It's violent and cruel in ways that I find excessive, but I still prefer that to no personality. As an example, I'm going to pipe down for a second and just listen to the background music on the menu alone. The menu music is selling the daylights out of this game's mood and atmosphere. It sounds like just a great big carnival of evil is coming at you. And indeed it is. This game is very well defined, very strong sense of personality, and that I think gives it a kind of life, even aside from its well-balanced gameplay. And right now I am trying to find the subtitles so you can also see what is happening in the videos even when I'm jabbering over them. Not that I'll do that, of course. I totally will. Now for this Let's Play, we're going to go through the campaign mode, all the campaigns, starting with Sweet Tooth's. I'm going to be playing on normal mode because when I play on hard, well, I can do a half-decent job or I can talk, not both at the same time. Okay, here we go. Now, one thing you might notice about these cutscenes is that they do a lot of long takes. We're going to be looking at this one radio for a long time. I hope you get used to it. Now, it's funny, the Twisted Metal Black cutscenes, made back in 2002, I think, were made almost entirely of stills, or scenes with very simple motion that was easy to animate on the limited time and resources and technology of the day. But somehow those were more fast-paced and more fast-moving than this. Simply because it moved along. Most of it was montage over narration. This isn't that. This has more of a exploitation movie vibe to it. It does its best to be shocking, and it mostly succeeds. It does drag sometimes, though. We spent a long time just looking at that radio, and that is a straight scene where nothing but dialogue happens in a movie is kind of like a book where no action happens and two characters just describe to each other what has happened in the past. It's just not making good use of the medium. Now, this is. We see Sweet Tooth drive off, and we get a panning shot of what's around his vehicle. Yes, thank you, subtitles. That up there is the subtitles telling you what you are reading, in case you're blind, you see. That's very helpful. But no, seriously, we see a surround shot of this vehicle. We see that it is an ice cream truck, and with functioning, pretty happy little music. We see the chain gun on it. We see this insane-looking guy with a burning head. We see the ironic and not true phrase, "Stop for children," on the front. We see that it's bashed up and scratched, and the windshield is just as filthy as all heck. Just looking at this, you learn a lot about this guy. That is good use of the medium. That is a good bit of cutscene. And that's something the other games didn't have. They didn't have very good introductions to the character, except backstories. And now we get the introduction. We do indeed get Sweet Tooth's intro, where he informs us that he teased her with the all caps subtitles and all that. And yes, he was a killer, probably a serial killer after this. He was conceived in the 1990s, which was a good decade for fictional serial killers, and a bad decade for their victims. The acting in this game is sometimes pretty cheesy, but I want to say the daughter is doing a great job. She looks like you probably would in this situation. It's kind of like, she's not overdoing it. I'm sure it's possible to overdo that somehow. And she's not looking bland or more focused than you really would be if you were panicking here. The other actors, when you see their faces, it's not always convincing, but that one really is. Oh, and notice how the blood on this picture covers covers most of his children, his wife, himself, him old self, his regular old sane self, but not the daughter who got away, and not the little boy either. That's foreshadowing. That was actually a good idea on the part of the filmmakers. They really pulled that off. And I want to point out some very good writing here. He doesn't say, "I will push her, severed head into my icebox, or her body into my icebox." He says her into the icebox. And what he's also saying is she needs to be gutted, not "I will do that," or "I can't wait to do that," or "I want to," but it needs to be done. That little bit of writing very well establishes that this guy has, even if he wanted to control his violent urges, he couldn't. He is that far gone. That line is just as creepy as heck. I got nothing else. This time! Still all caps, mind you. And here's where it starts. Now, most Twisted Metal games, each character comes with their own car. You change characters, you change cars at the same time. That's how it goes. This is the only game in the series where you can, where one character can drive any car they like. Now, I actually think that's a bit of a step backwards. I like that each character's personality coincides with their car's personality, because the car does have personality. I mean, just look at these designs. These cars are loaded with personality. They seem different when you look at them. And that speaks very well of the design team's sense of visual design. You can tell they thought long and hard about what they wanted these cars to look like. What they wanted you to think when you first saw them. I mean, whoever heard of a hearse with hot rod flames? Or, for that matter, a helicopter in a Twisted Metal game. It's very creative. I like that. I am going to go with the police car. Oh yes, and they let you pick 3 vehicles, so the helicopter and the tow truck. Now, this first match takes place in Sun Springs, California. Not a real place, I looked it up. But it's certainly the start of a theme we've got going here, where this game is set entirely, it seems, in the state of California. We've got Sun Springs, California. There's another map set in LA. Everything else, and the other maps, well, they contain palm trees, so they have to be on one of the coasts, and it's probably not the East Coast because, well, the cities are all big enough to be Twisted Metal maps, big enough and spread out enough. Because in the U.S., the eastern states were settled back before cars were a thing. They were pedestrian cities, very closed in. But California, back in 1910, when cars were already an established thing, California's population was about 2.5 million. Now, that's about as many people as are in Utah today. Utah is a pretty thinly spread state, and if you take all the people in Utah and spread them out over the entire land area of California, well, that is nobody. And the population only really skyrocketed in, I think, the 40s and 50s. This is according to CaliforniaMatters.com. Now, what that means is that when California got populous enough to even think about urbanizing, cars were already a well-established thing. So this game pretty much had to be set in California. It just wouldn't be the same otherwise. Boing. Yes, one thing you'll find me doing is jumping in the vehicle, partly because it's a very good tactic, partly because I just love jumping in a vehicle. I mean, who does that? It's like we're Speed Racer. Same goes for ramming. That is just, I love that you can ram people in this game. Anyway, about California being just an inherently Twisted Metal friendly place, it gets me thinking, what would this game be like if you set it in other parts of the country? Like, places like Boston or Washington, D.C. would be a pretty tall order. Indeed, D.C. would be horrendous because there'd be so many pedestrians around. It's a very, very pedestrian-dominated city. But either way, I can guarantee you that Colorado, where I live, does have some very open spaces that would be perfect fodder for this game. And the Rocky Mountains contain a lot of very windy highways built on the path of old trails the Ute Indians came up with. And those are twisty, they've got dead drops on either side. It is just everything a Twisted Metal designer could ask for. Even got beautiful scenery that can be messed up somehow. A lot of mining ghost towns there for a destroyed beauty feel. It's just a golden opportunity. And I'm sad that Twisted Metal will probably never do that. The series will probably either stay in California or it'll go international, and just do a bunch of famous places like the Pyramids of Cairo. I'm pretty sure they did that in Twisted Metal 3. But that's okay. This game being set in just one place, it does, again, it gives it a consistent theme, a sense of personality, something that less courageous developers might not have bothered with. Boing! Ow! I thought that would work better. Now, this particular irritating old blighter is Axel, and this vehicle is just two big wheels the guy stuck between them. In previous games, the guy really was stuck there. He couldn't get out, and that was part of his backstory. Ow, I stepped on a landmine. And that is just so very Twisted Metal. It's automotive, it's macabre, it's grotesque, and it's kind of tragic when you get down to it. Here, it's just a gangster driving a weird vehicle. That weakens it a bit. That is one case. That is one aspect of this game where letting any character drive any vehicle just isn't the same. Now, eagle-eyed viewers might notice that is a burning pedestrian diving out of the vehicle, and I am indeed running him over. That's part of this game. When you destroy a vehicle, it explodes. The crew, whether it's one person or two, just goes diving out in a panic, and you gain extra health or a random weapon, either one, if you run them over. That is... That's pretty intense. Even by the standards of video games, that is very violent and doesn't entirely sit right with me. Not that I'm on a high horse or anything, because here I am playing the game, it's just uncomfortable. You know, the game that got me into the car combat genre... Okay, let's try this again. Boing! Ow! Why is that not destructible? The game that got me into the car combat series, the whole genre, was Hot Wheels Velocity X. And that game was... Well, it had violence in it, but it was still a very... its theme was a lot more wholesome. It had the feel of a Hot Wheels cartoon, there have been many, or a Speed Racer cartoon. With lots of over-the-top villains with goofy names, a goofy-themed gangster, and a villain whose name was Otto von Diesel, and he had an evil scar and a permanent sneer, the whole thing. That's another game with a very well-defined personality, and I like it for that. So, this game is not the devil because it's more violent than that, but it would have been nice if it hadn't been. One fun thing about this game is, aside from the stationary goodies, the weapons that you pick up, it has a moving truck with a ramp on the bottom, and you can ramp over it and gain health. Now that is... I love that mechanic. Not only does it encourage you to keep moving around, which the game should do, but it is exactly the sort of thing you would come up with when you're a little boy playing around with Hot Wheels cars in his living room. And that aspect of this game's, here it comes again, personality is just... I just love that so much. Oof, oof, ow. If you're wondering why I flipped over there, it is because I had forgotten that the semi-truck is the vehicle that can drop 5 bombs. It only works if you're an idiot, but, well, yeah. What we're doing here is a death match. Everyone gets 1 life, and, well, last one standing wins. Nice and simple, and I gather that it's how most of the other Twisted Metal games were put together. I like it because, well, it's like all shooters where everyone gets only 1 life. When a car explodes, that matters. That guy's not coming back. It's not that... It's not in a blood-hungry, yeah, I killed someone kind of way. It's just permanence. Permanence, when weapons do things that are permanent, they feel more powerful. That's how it always is. Now, if you've played the original... If you have played this game or are familiar with car combat, you're probably screaming at the screen right now telling me, "Darn it, you idiot, stop getting hit by those freeze missiles." And to you, sir or madam, I say, sorry, I do. You know, as far as other places this game could be set go, the Deep South is an opportunity because there's a lot of, you know, of course they've got cities which are not the best material for this, but why are we doing the same level again? Ah, my mistake. Yes, I meant to do the next one. Anyway, the cities are... Well, I haven't been to the cities. I can't well speak to that, but, you know, the countryside has swamp. And you know what you can do with swamp? That can be a game mechanic. You know, it can be more difficult terrain for a vehicle. It can conceal landmines. It can conceal hazards. There's at least one car combat game where there are alligators that'll try to eat you in swamps. I like that idea. And I do know for a fact that there are at least a few pumas that live in Florida swamps. That's pretty strange. They could run with that. You could also set the game in Texas, but then it would be too difficult because as soon as the pedestrians realized you were up to no good, all the contestants would get shot to hay before they could find each other. So you would have to find some way around that.
I have to tell you, and this is just between you and I.
I like Calypso's dialogue in this game. It's pretty strange that he would say, "This is just between you and I," when it's plainly obvious that he designed his Twisted Metal contest to cause a whole lot of death and destruction. There is no way he would actually be scandalized by that.
Now, if you want to survive, beware the traps
That's what trap means, yes?
and beware of the dangers.
That's also the literal definition of the word danger, something to be aware of, but
For the layout
thank you. Thank you, Captain Obvious.
I love that term.
That line makes me laugh.
There is a garage here if you get low on health. But know there are other ways to stay alive in Blackrock. Destroy all enemies, Splatoon. It's the only way for you to win.
Now, looking at this big old stadium, with its apparently televised competitions, and with this big screaming crowd that knows exactly what they showed up for. Consider what that radio guy in the earlier cutscene said. Twisted Metal isn't, Calypso isn't real. Twisted Metal isn't real. How could it be possible to disguise the fact that Twisted Metal is real in a world where this competition happens? A lot of the Twisted Metal games, in fact almost all of them, either imply or state outright that what's happening is not actually real and this whole thing is all just a dream or some fit of insanity that one or all of the characters is having. And this game will be very ambiguous about that. It'll drop a bunch of different hints about whether or not what we're seeing is the real deal. And I think this big crowd is one big hint that it's not actually real, because if it was, it would be an accepted thing. People would know about it. The it's all real thesis states that it's real and people aren't aware there's an actual contest. They think that all this violence of cars running around shooting each other is just, and I quote, crime getting bad. Now, for one thing, I don't know of any kind of crime that involves building a bunch of Mad Max-style monstrosities and shooting each other with them, but that's not even the main thing. The main thing is, it would have to mean that there aren't people going to these televised contests and viewing all this as if it's a sport. Yes! What you saw me use right there was the remote control bomb car weapon, which it seems to me like deploying a car from another car is a little excessive, but maybe that's just because I'm no good at aiming with that weapon. Why is everyone sniping me? Come on, come on, come on. Yes! My favorite thing about fighting light vehicles in a heavy vehicle is the way you can fling them when you hit them. The developers knew you would enjoy it this much. They knew exactly what they were doing. Ow! Kind of like that, but farther. I'll grab this, and I'll grab this, and I'll grab this. And remember how I can't not get hit by freeze missiles? Well, this guy is about to feel my pain. The way this game's mechanics work is that you can, there are weapons that you pick up on the ground, like this that I'm facing right here. This is a missile. I grab it, yay, now I have 3 more missiles. You also have 3 functions that come from a recharging energy bar. You consume energy to do them. And one of them is the freeze missile. Like this, haha, point blank shotgun, boom! Another is landmines. How do landmines come from energy? I don't know. Boom! And another one is a very short-lasting energy shield. And You can let your energy build up and fire the freeze missile, which takes a lot of energy. Or you can just, do cheap landmines and dump them everywhere and deploy the shield whenever it's convenient. I like that game mechanic. So there are some weapons that rely on ammo, some not strictly weapons, but devices, options that use only, that recharge over time, which means that a really put upon vehicle will necessarily run low on its combat ability, even if it has plenty of ammo. That makes being swarmed very dangerous, no matter how well stocked you are. A good way to limit shopping, because no matter what happens, you're just going to have to get used to the fact that you will be attacked, and
Like the holidays.
no amount of shopping can stop that. Okay, now this map, it's snowing. Does it snow in California? I'm going to have to look that up after I finish this video, because if it does snow, that's going to poke a hole in my theory that this is entirely taking place in California.
No one expects to die on Christmas.
Wait, there's the Statue of Liberty right there. This isn't...
This year, I've
But that's not... I'm not sure.